Okay, now we have 4 people.
Okay, all right. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you all for joining us for today's month of service presentation of taxpayer rights. My name is Leah Murray. I am the programs coordinator with Neighborhood Recovery Community Development Corporation, and we are one of the partners in the month of service collaboration. Also, we have included the City of Houston Department of Neighborhood, Lone Star Legal Aid, um, the Earl Carl Institute, the Harris Central Appraisal District, Harris County Tax Assessment Collector's Office, um, Houston Bar Association, as well as the Earl Carl Institute and Houston Volunteer Lawyers. And together we all make up a month of service. And what we're here today is to provide information for you in regards to taxpayer rights and income tax preparation. We know this is the season for it. And we know that a lot of folks, potentially are going through a lot of difficulties with choosing who is to prepare their tax returns, um, updates, laws that have changed, what your rights are as a taxpayer, as well as knowing where to go to actually to get your tax refunds done and protect yourselves against different frauds and scams that are out there. So we hope you guys are ready to receive a lot of information that we have available for you today. Just to kind of give you a quick background, a month of service is a collaboration of all 8 of our organizations. We come together on a monthly basis, offering a variety of different workshops and services relative to asset building, asset protection, the maintaining of generational wealth, as well as community empowerment. So we know that again, there are a lot of underserved communities that are out there that don't have access to a lot of information or services, and we wanted to collectively come together and make sure that we provide as much information as we can to the community, as well as available resources where they can go for different services and things of that nature. So we hope that you guys enjoy the information that's going to be presented here today. I actually am here in San Francisco. I am out at the training, so I will have to step off for just a moment. But you guys will definitely be in good hands. Please note that the session is being recorded, as well as broadcasting live on our social media platform on Facebook. Um, but this is your opportunity to ask whatever questions that it is that you may have. But ask that you try to keep your questions to be as general as you possibly can so that your personal detail information is not out there for everyone to actually have access to. We will be sending out a link of this recording for all of the registered participants to go back to make reference to and to potentially share with other people that may also find this information to be beneficial. So again, ask whatever questions it is that you like. If you are joining us on Facebook, please make sure that you type your questions into the comment section, and we'll make sure that your question gets addressed or answered aloud at the end of the presentation as well. Also, keep in mind the information that is presented here today is for educational purposes only. It is not to be considered legal advice. However, we do encourage you to reach out to our legal service partners like Lone Star Legal Aid, Houston Volunteer Lawyers, and the Earl Carl Institute for any civil legal assistance that you may find yourself in need of. In addition to that, if you are looking for a tax preparation site, we have Mr. Raymond Wynn with Baker Ripley, who's going to be going over that information for you all as well. So I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Karina Lopez and Mr. Raymond Wynn for them to give an introduction and move right on into the presentation. So Karina, why don't we have you go first? And then Raymond, when you introduce, you can just go ahead and into your presentation.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Karina Lopez. I am a litigation director for tax and the clinic director at Lone Star Legal Aid's tax clinic. Those are a lot of fancy titles just to say that I am the head person doing tax controversy work over at Lone Star. So very excited to talk to you guys.
All right. Raymond?
Hi everyone, my name is Raymond Nguyen. I'm with Baker Ripley Neighborhood Tax Centers. I'm here to share with you all our free tax preparation services.
Okay, go right ahead.
So Neighborhood Tax Centers, we help families and individuals that earn up to $58,000. We provide free quality tax preparation for current year, And during March, we can help with prior years and amendments. We can go back to as far as 2018 to help with free tax preparation. We also offer free ITIN applications and renewals, W-7 forms, assistant in multiple languages. So that's really one of our highlight of our program is that we're able to help in multiple languages. 1 out of 3 volunteer staff member are bilingual. So we support up to 80 languages last year. We also have American Sign Language interpreter. These are available by appointments. So you can call that number here, 832-394-0814 to schedule a sign language interpreter. Next, these are the items that you will have to bring when you come to our tax centers. Okay, so tax preparer will have to show Social Security number cards for every individual on their tax return. Or if you don't have a Social Security number, ITIN letter sent by the IRS for every individual on the tax return. And of course, we ask that you bring your government issued photo ID along with documentation of income. These are W-2s, any 1099 forms that you have. If you receive cash income, please also bring documentation of that as well. The next item is documentation of expenses paid. These are particularly for our self-employed individuals that have to deduct, expenses like mileage, items that they buy for their business. This could also be interest loan, student loan interest deductions. So anything that you pay interest or anything that, from your business that you want to see if you can deduct and help you on your taxes, I encourage you to bring that as well. Okay. As a VITA program, if you all don't know what VITA means, is Volunteer Income Tax Assistance Program. So we are able to provide free tax preparation for families, but there are some returns that we can prepare and some returns that we cannot prepare. So I'm going to go over the returns that we can prepare at our locations. So of course, any simple W-2s, 1099, as I mentioned, self-employed individuals can also seek help. Folks that receive cash income, Social Security, pensions, retirement accounts, we do help with those returns. Returns involving sales of stocks. And if you have any education expenses, childcare expenses, any 1099-C cancellation of debt on your home or credit card, we can also help with that. We can prepare Schedule A, Schedule B, and Schedule C. And also, we are trained, our volunteers are trained to make sure that everybody that comes into our tax center get all the tax credit that they are qualified for, such as the earned income credits, the child tax credits, education credit, and of course the child care credit as well. As I mentioned before, we can prepare returns all the way back to 2018. So if folks are behind on their taxes, please come to our center. We can, help you prepare and catch up on your taxes. Okay. So these are the returns that we normally don't do at our center. Any casualty loss. We cannot do depreciation of assets. These are like rental income, rental properties and things like that. If you buy or purchase or sell of a business, we cannot do those returns. Business that claim use of home office or any business with inventory, we do not do. Any businesses that you hire employees or you contract additional staff member, we don't do. And any businesses that report a loss, VITA programs cannot do. Any capital gains and losses investment beyond three to four sales, we don't do. And of course, we don't do any corporate returns, only individual. So these are our tax assistant program. We have 27 locations all across Harris County, Montgomery County, and Fort Bend County. So we have 12 locations. We also have a virtual service available as well. That could be found on our bakerripley.org. For more location and hours, you guys can check out our website, and from there you can also locate our virtual service. So we can prepare your return remotely. You don't have to come into our center. And it's the same process. It's just that, everything is done remotely. Any questions, you can also give us a call at 713-273-3755. Okay. Any questions that you guys have about our services? You guys see any questions? Okay. Yeah, I don't see any questions on my end.
Hear me?
Margaret, do you have a question? Can't hear you.
Yes. Hear me?
Not really.
Can you hear me? Anybody?
No, we have trouble hearing you. Can you, if you have a question, maybe put it in the chat? All right, if there's no questions, we can move on to the next presenter. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, give me 1 second to switch. Okay. You guys can see that, right?
Yes, we can see it.
Thank you. So, like I said earlier, my name is Karina Lopez. I am the litigation director and clinic director for the Low Income Taxpayer Clinic at Lone Star Legal Aid. Lone Star Legal Aid is part of a pretty big organization. We currently have 14 offices, and we serve 72 counties in like the eastern part of Texas and the Gulf Coast. So our program is actually, the Low Income Taxpayer Clinic is firm-wide. So we help people in all of those counties, although we are based in Houston. The best way to get help from us is probably to apply online, lonestarlegal.org. Just kind of put in some basic information as well as an example of your legal problems, and then somebody will get back to you and do a little more in-depth interview. So in addition to tax, we handle a wide variety of civil matters, family law, consumer law. We help with evictions, public benefits, housing. There are a ton of things that we do, and so I didn't list them here because that would take forever. But I want to let you know that if you go to our website, lonestarlegal.org, you can see the kind of our core areas, which are things like family law, public benefits, and you can also see our special projects. For instance, we have a new project that is helping people who are affected by the opioid crisis. So we step in when someone has a problem with the IRS. We don't just do current year tax returns. We do some prior year ones if we need to help somebody out. And we don't do criminal or business tax work. If you come in needing a current year return done, we generally send you to someplace like Baker Ripley or another Vita site. Okay, so I thought today that I would actually talk about refund delays. And the reason that I wanted to talk about this is because I was seeing on a lot of different message boards and news articles that there are a lot more requests for people to verify their identity this year than others. I don't actually know if that's true or not. Maybe it just seems that way. You know, sometimes you don't hear about the good stuff. You just hear about people with a negative experience. So when I really started thinking about this, I was like, well, there has to be a lot more reasons why somebody would not get their refund when they're expecting it within that 21-day period that the IRS allows for processing. So I came up with a bunch of reasons, and a lot of this information I could probably talk about in its own presentation, so I am going to skim over it, but just trying to give you enough information to see if you do need some further help from an organization like ours. All right. So the first thing that you will see, well, the first thing you'll see is not this letter. The first thing you'll see if you're checking online, where's my refund, is you're going to see a screen, and I have it in a couple slides. I'm going to show it to you. But generally, whenever the IRS is going to hold your refund for whatever reason, they send you a letter. And these notices are not important. I just kind of listed them here. But this letter just says that the IRS is verifying something on your return and they need 60 more days to do it. And 60 more days to do it. And generally, you don't actually need to do anything in these kind of cases. The IRS looks at things and then, you know, they send the letter within 60 days and they never kind of, I'm sorry, not the letter. They send the refund within the 60 days and you don't really ever need to contact them. But it could be something a little more complicated. And an example of one of these letters where in the situation where you don't actually need any kind of input would be a case of, you know, let's say that you had several jobs during the year and you included 3 W-2s, but the IRS only has records of 2 of them because one of your employers didn't send the information returned to them. And so, you know, you're reporting income that the IRS doesn't have. They do a little investigation. They say, okay, that, you know, the person actually did report correctly, so we're done with this. If they're going to do a little more in-depth work, that's when this questionable refund hold comes into play, okay? So it's called a questionable refund, but it doesn't necessarily mean that anybody has done anything wrong. It just means that literally they are questioning the refund. And the IRS wants to do some more investigation before they release it. And there can be a lot of reasons for something like this. The biggest I would say is if you have any kind of a life change during the year, let's say a major life change. Maybe you got married, so you switched your filing status, or you know your income changed, and not just you know you made more money or you made less money. I'm talking about you know maybe you were an employee and all of a sudden you know you're running your own business, and that can be completely legit. It's just a little bit of a change, and this dependence thing I think really comes into play. For example, a lot of people are raising kids that are not theirs. So they're doing kind of a kinship foster type thing, or maybe it's not officially foster care. It's just kind of an informal arrangement where, you know, the taxpayer has power of attorney to act for this child. Well, once there is guardianship established through the court, these kids can now be claimed as dependents and they qualify the taxpayer for the earned income credit. But if all of a sudden you have, an 11-year-old showing up on your tax return where, you didn't have one before, that may kind of bring up a little red flag. And so that might be some case where, you did everything right. It's just that that the IRS filters kind of said, oh, that's a little bit fishy. Okay. So I just talked about IRS filters. The IRS computer systems, old as they are, they have different filters put into place where they're trying to capture certain information to figure out if they need to do more investigation on a tax return. Over the years, these have increased. I think there's at least 50 now, but I could be wrong on that. But one of the things that the IRS is really concerned about is identity theft, because these identity thieves are becoming much more sophisticated, and it's easy to do things online now, and so a lot of scams regarding the IRS are happening. So as part of their identity theft unit, they have this taxpayer protection project. So the whole point of it is to protect people from identity theft before it happens or before this refund is paid out. So something maybe gets triggered in these filters, like I just said, maybe it's your adopted child. They will send you a letter and they will ask you to verify your refund. Verify your identity. If you do not verify your identity, you're not going to get the refund. And that's basically it. You have to go through this process. And depending on the letter, you can do it either online, phone, or in person. And I'm kind of briefly discuss what you need for each of those things. But I've also listed the letters here. So the IRS is never going to email you, text you. They're never going to call you out of the blue. They're not going to send a carrier pigeon. None of that. They use USPS. They absolutely will send you a letter on this, and that is how they're going to initiate contact. So there have been some reports of schemes this year where people are getting these phone calls saying, you need to verify, this, and this, maybe verify your bank account. That's not going to happen over the phone. So the first type of letter, the 5071C, is the most common one, and it allows you to verify either online or by phone. There is another one that lets you just verify by phone. I really haven't seen that one. I know it exists, but I haven't seen it with my clients yet. And the third one is even more rare. It's when they want you to actually come in person. I'm guessing that they probably only use that in cases where the potential fraud is very large and there's some reason why they need to see you in person. But generally, the IRS wants to handle this either online or via the phone. So when you check where's your refund on either the IRS app, which is IRS to go, or if you log on to the website and you get this message, there's some kind of delay here, obviously. They will not tell you exactly what is wrong with your return on this screen. The only thing that they will do is they may update this and say, it's gonna take even longer and we're sending you a letter with instructions on what to do. This tax topic 152, it is very generic. It just basically says IRS is looking at your tax return, and so therefore, wait till we contact you about it. This screen I have seen with the identity verification cases, so that's why it's called identity verification screen, although you can get this for other reasons as well. All right, how you verify online. It is kind of tricky. I did have to go through this ID.me procedure to access my tax professional account, and it's a little bit wonky. They have some errors and little issues with this, so this might be kind of hard to do. But what you do is, you send this link. This is going to be in your letter as well, so you don't actually need to, write this down or anything. And in order to verify yourself, you have to sign into ID.me. And if you don't already have an account, you need to verify. So basically, you can take a picture of yourself with your ID. So for instance, my picture was me holding up my driver's license, and that was accepted. But if for some reason that is not accepted, you can video chat with a live assister, and that's going to take a little bit longer to do, but generally, and you have to have a webcam so they can actually see you on the screen. But if you do actually get through this process, it's good because now you can access a bunch of stuff that you didn't have access to before. So once you're in, they're going to ask you some questions to kind of verify it, and you need to have that letter from the IRS in front of you. Sorry about that. Sorry. Okay. If you don't do online verification, you can do phone verification. So if your letter says online or phone, you can pick which one is easier for you. But you have to have these documents when you're calling. You have to have the letter in front of you. You have to have the tax return that they are questioning. So generally, this is probably going to be your latest one. But it could be for a prior year, you never know. And you have to have the prior year before that's returned. So if, for instance, they're asking you to verify your identity based upon your 2023 return, you need to have 2022 in front of you. And again, that is for verification purposes. And you also have to have all the supporting documents for both returns. So that means your W-2s, your 1099s, Schedule C, if you took a tuition deduction, or you need to have the 1098-T, all of that stuff. And sometimes people don't have this, especially if it's for, more than a year ago. And you can request your transcripts online by going to the Get Transcript link that I have here. If you Google Get IRS Transcript, it's also going to pop up for you. And if you are needing your information for this particular situation where you need the prior year return because you need to tell them your adjusted gross income, you want a tax return transcript. And you can get those either online. If you have the ID.me and you're already verified, you can do that. You can have them send it to you by mail, or you can give them a call and they'll also mail it to you. So in person. Okay, you can use this method if you get the third letter, which is in person only, but that's rare. But if all else fails, you always have the option to do it in person. You need to make an appointment at a taxpayer assistance center. And that is generally also an IRS office. I think there are some exceptions where, an IRS office may not be a taxpayer assistance center, but at least in Houston, the ones that we have are there. And we've got 4 offices in Houston. There's one downtown on Smith in the Federal Building. There is one northwest over at Gulf Freeway and Beltway, I believe. The southwest one is off of Gessner and 59, and the southeast one is at Gulf Freeway, and I am blanking on the intersection. But anyway, if you go to the offices there, it'll let you know. So usually these appointments are during working hours. And if you cannot make it during this time, you're working or you're doing something else, they some centers are offering face-to-face help on Saturdays. And these are special events where they're going to be open from 9 to 4. They're going to be able to take payments. They're going to be able to ask questions, verify your identity, things like that. So the upcoming dates are March 16th, April 13th, and May 18th. And I've listed the locations for each of those there as well. I recommend you go early. Having been to one of these, it gets credit very quickly. So I would recommend be there, first thing in the morning if you are trying to get help this way. Okay, what do you need to bring? So just like on the phone, you need to have your letter, you need the tax return, your prior year return, and all the supporting documents. If you are going to one of these Saturday help days, they are able to get you a copy of that tax return transcript for you. So that would be something that you wouldn't necessarily have to bring if you don't have it. And so you need all of this, and you need at least, I'm sorry, you also need a picture ID, which I neglected to put on here. But you need a picture ID, and then you also need either another type of identification, so maybe like your passport or something like that, maybe your card that identifies you as an active service, things like that. And then you need to bring one of these other things with you. And this is for verification. This is to prove that you're really you. And it can be any one of these things. But if you have more than one, I would suggest bringing them as well, because you never know. It's better to be over prepared. I spoke last month about this particular thing, tax theft, and especially tax fraud. And if you want to go back and listen to way more of that, you can go back into Amos's recordings. But generally, there's two types of tax fraud here, and they it has to happen because of identity theft in these cases. So someone is using your information to work. Someone is maybe your employer is saying that you're not an employee. They want to pay you as a independent contractor. So things like that. And then there's refund related, which generally occurs a lot with tax preparers, or it can be the person themselves. And for things like the earned income credit, people who make very little money and people who make a lot of money are not going to get much of a refund. It's really those people in the middle, the so-called sweet spot. And so if you hire someone to do your taxes, they may know exactly what kind of income they need to put in here so that you get the most back. They can also make up self-employment income and dependents. Your dependents are your dependents. You are not allowed to trade them because you are not using them, even though the IRS allows you a max of 3 dependents. This is very bad, and don't do it. And if you get caught, you will pay back a lot of money. Okay, so how is identity theft discovered? It could be this verification letter. So let's say that you get an identity verification letter from the IRS and you say, I didn't file my taxes because I only have Social Security income. So what is this? So they have actually, in that situation, it's worked because they've caught the identity theft before it happens. You could also get a bill or an audit saying you owe X amount of dollars. And again, you're like, no, I didn't, or I didn't even file that year. And you could just get a bill, saying pay us this amount of money, and you have no idea what's going on. If you're a victim of other identity theft, it is likely that taxes could be involved in that. So you kind of want to think ahead of that. And where our clients see this a lot is that these fraudulent tax refunds are actually affecting some other benefit that they are getting. And so anything that is based, that is income based, is going to be affected by this. generally, a lot of these programs require you to give them your current year tax return, but they also check that. They don't just go by based upon what you've submitted. They also ask for this information from the IRS. And so if they don't match, then things are a little suspicious there, and you may actually find out, from the housing authority or the food stamp office before the IRS even gets to you, and they might say you're over income and you have no idea why they're saying that. So what to do? Obviously you report this to the IRS, but I really want to caution you that you need to be sure that this is identity theft before you tell the IRS that it is. And the reason for that is that it becomes a lot more difficult to get information out of the IRS once you mention the words identity theft. Okay. There have been some of our clients where, their refund was offset to tax debt that they forgot about, and they've called the IRS and said, someone stole my refund, it's identity theft. And you can't really take it back later on. And so to fix those cases took us twice as long because you're dealing with this unit. And the other thing is that this processing time right now is over 680 days to process an identity theft affidavit. This is not a typo. I realize that this is a ridiculous number, and I actually don't see it getting better anytime soon. I kind of see it getting worse. If you are a victim of tax-related identity theft, you can also report this to the FTC. They have an online version of that form 14039. And again, you might be a victim of something else. So check out your credit report and do a freeze if you need to. All right. Another reason could be something called the PATH Act. I think it's called Protecting Americans from Tax Hikes, but I could be wrong on that. But one of the things that this act did was that it prohibited the IRS from processing returns that include the earned income credit and the child tax credit before February 15th. And that doesn't mean that people stopped, filing early. I think the whole point of this law was to combat some of this fraud or just mistakes. It's really common with people who file early that they might forget to add something to their tax return. They might forget a W-2 or several of them, depending on how many jobs. And later on, you have to amend that, and that's actually kind of a pain to do and causes more waiting. So I think the whole point of this was to kind of slow people down. But I don't think that it's worked that well. I think people now turn to getting loans against their refunds instead of just getting this money from the IRS. So most of these returns are supposed to be processed by today, and should be in most accounts if there's direct deposit and if there are no other issues with the return. So if there's identity verification, identity theft, or questionable refund like we talked about earlier, that's an issue, and that is definitely going to delay processing of these returns. All right, you could also not get your refund because they took it to pay IRS debt from another year. And some people don't realize that this applies even if you're in a payment plan already, like an installment agreement. They'll take it, they'll apply it to the oldest debt if you have several years that are owed. And there is a very narrow exception to protect this refund, but you basically have to be evicted, having your utilities shut off, basically be on the brink of homelessness before they treat this as a hardship and give you the refund from that year. You may also think that they're taking a lot of money from me. Well, there are also penalties and interest added onto this amount. So if you knew that you owed $2,000, you might be surprised that now it's $2,700, but that's because of the penalties and the interest compounding daily. You can get a couple of these penalties taken away. You just have to ask the first time. If you do it multiple times, you really need a good reason why they shouldn't give you penalties. But again, to know your current balance, checking your transcripts is a great idea. All right. Innocent and injured spouse relief, these are often confused, but really the only thing they have in common is that you need the joint return. So innocent spouse relief occurs when spouses are filing jointly and there is debt and there's some reason why one of the spouses shouldn't be held responsible. And that particular item, maybe it's a forgotten W-2 or a retirement distribution, that has to be caused by the other spouse. I could talk for an hour about just this, but generally you can't know that there were issues on the return when it was filed. So if you're thinking that might be your situation, that is a type of case that Lone Star does, or you can go to the IRS website and read a little bit more about that. The only way that you are going to get your refund back in an innocent spouse case is if you win, and you have to win under certain sections. Now, injured spouse relief. This will let you claim back half of your refund on a joint return if the refund was taken and applied towards non-tax debt. So for the most part, we see this with child support, student loans, or debts to a federal agency. I've seen this offset to VA hospitals, or occasionally it can be state unemployment. Federal unemployment as well. And you have to file a form. You can't just assume that the IRS knows that this wasn't you. You got to file this form 8379 either when you file your return or after the offset occurs, and then later on they'll process it and they'll give you your half if you really have nothing to do with it. Okay, Treasury Offset Program. This is not the IRS, but the Treasury Department has a department in there, maybe a unit, which is the Bureau of Fiscal Services, and they run this Treasury Offset Program. And this program is to collect past due debts that are owed to the federal government. One of the methods that they use is taking tax refunds, and that's why a lot of people think that this is the IRS and they want to call the IRS and yell at them, but calling the IRS isn't going to do anything in these cases. So this occurs when these various state and federal agencies report a delinquency to Treasury Offset Program. And like I said, this can be refund offsets, but it could be Social Security payments. If you're a federal employee, they can take your paycheck, various things like that. And it does require that these be eligible. And in this case, eligible means that it's legally enforceable and that they are delinquent. So what will happen is that you will get a letter from whatever agency it is. So let's say it's student loan debt. You'll get a letter from the Department of Education saying, we have referred you to the Treasury Offset Program. A lot of people will ignore this letter because they don't know what the Treasury Offset Program is. So they either think it's a scam or they're just, not going to worry about it right now. Maybe they aren't even filing taxes in that year, but your debt stays there. This letter from the agency has to tell you, why there's a debt, and has to give you 60 days to do some kind of an appeal with the agency. If you miss the 60 days and, your refund's taken for this non-tax debt, then you have to contact that underlying agency to see what you can work out with them. Maybe you can pay it in installments, or it's a hardship or something, but that's not something that the IRS is going to help you with. And you'll also get a letter once the refund is taken. So you might kind of wonder, why you're not getting your refund. Eventually you will get this letter and it'll tell you the agency that got the refund. Audits are generally, it's someone taking a second look at your return. This happens after a refund is paid out. Now, in cases where it happens before, this is just an automatic, matching program where the system spits out something that says you didn't report all of your W-2s, and we're auditing you. So, I mean, the audit has a scary connotation, but it's just them asking for more information. Usually it's by mail. You submit the documents that they want. You can either upload if they give you that option, fax, or if you're going to mail something, always mail it certified mail. And always respond timely. If they give you a deadline, you need to respond by that deadline, because if you later submit it, they're not going to look at it and you're going to go to the next step, and you might ignore subsequent letters thinking, well, the IRS already has that. Well, they're not considering it because you're late. So be on time. There are various reasons for audit, but a lot of the ones that I've seen a lot have to do with Schedule C's, that's self-employment, either your incomes or deductions. Deductions in round numbers tend to make the IRS think that you're just estimating them or just making them up. Although, they could be round and they could be legitimate. And, if you have too big of a loss, if you say that you have a business and you lost $50,000 this year, that is going to look suspicious. If you're missing these income documents, if you're taking too many deductions, or if you're claiming the earned income credit and the child tax credit, those are actually audited at a higher percentage than other returns. And, sometimes they can audit you for training purposes or just randomly to spot check how the system is working. So those are a non-exhaustive list of reasons why you don't have your refund yet. But if you are concerned about it and it's been longer than 60 days, in cases of 2023, it'd probably give it like a couple months just because of how far the IRS is. But if you are having these issues for a long time, you can feel free to contact us. Again, you can call us at 713-652-0077, put in an application, or you can do that online. So does anybody have any questions? Don't see any. And I am not really sure how to check on Facebook Live. Oh, I did just check, and there is no questions there either. So let me just give you another minute to ask questions. Otherwise, it looks like we will be done early. All right. Okay, no questions. So, yes, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Yes, I was trying to type, couldn't type fast enough.
That's okay.
When you pull your pension, what is the percentage that the IRS is supposed to charge?
What do you mean by pull it? Take money out of it?
Yeah, so I know that if you do a rollover, so I left my job, I took the pension, and majority of the money I did a rollover IRA. So I know they can't tax that. But then
Correct.
I took a small amount out for my personal use, and I know that gets taxed. So I was told 10%, but then I was also told 20%.
So the 10% is an early withdrawal penalty. So if you don't meet any of the conditions for that, they do, it's like an extra tax on you. That's the 10%. So like qualified things would be like, maybe you took it out because you needed to repair your house from a storm. Like that's actually a qualified reason that you wouldn't have to pay that 10% additional tax. Pensions are taxed based upon your tax rate. So whatever the rate is that you're paying, you might be paying 20%. And so therefore, your tax on that might be 20%. It's going to kind of depend on the rest of your income.
Okay, so 10% is for a penalty, and then the other
Correct.
10 is probably just regular taxing which I don't understand that part. Okay, so I just didn't understand where the total 20% came from, but I
Oh,
didn't think about the
okay.
early
Yeah,
part.
that's that penalty. So that's the one that kind of surprises people. Like they realize that they do have to pay tax on the distributions, but then they're like, wait, where did this 10% come from? And so when you're reporting that on your return, you can actually there's a whole bunch of reasons why the penalty shouldn't apply. And if you do like an online program, they usually prompt you and they say, do you have any of these situations?
Yeah, yeah. Okay,
So yeah, the
I've seen
10% is a
that, but that's a
penalty.
question. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, it can.
I'm having the opposite effect. I failed to withdraw or call in for my required minimum distribution from my pension, and so for the year 2023. And I'm just reading, I can be taxed up to 50% of whatever the distribution was to be. Is there any way I can avoid that penalty or get any type of grace for just overlooking having it withdrawn?
Let's see. Are you you're over the age of 72 or
Yes.
73? Okay, so that's the required
I
minimum distribution.
have taken them in the past. It's just that I didn't know that I had to call in each year, and I overlooked calling in for 2023.
You mean calling into your retirement plan?
Yes, and so they did not send me a distribution for 2023. I was entitled to one. They didn't send one. And so therefore I don't have, the 1099 to report in 2023. I can take it now, but now I'll have to report it in 2024. But since I skipped 2023 and I failed to refer it out, to have it withdrawn, I was reading and it was saying that I could be taxed up to 50% of the RMD by the IRS because I failed to have that done. Is that correct? And if so, is there any way that I can have that penalty waived? I won't be able to report until now, 2024, but, so what can I do? I need to do anything in 2023, apologize or send any form saying overlooked? And because in 2024, I can report it, but then I'll also have to report whatever's taken out in 2024. So, and that's probably the year that they will, assess a penalty to 2023.
So going to the first part of the question, yes, they can take up to 50%. That was because there was a legislation that was passed. And the only exception that I can think of off the top of my head, because sorry, I don't actually deal with this too much. But if you're still employed, then you don't have to take it. Are you still employed?
No.
No. Okay. And I don't know the other ones. But yeah, unfortunately, that's a little bit beyond me. I haven't had it come up with my clients, so yeah, unfortunately, I don't have a good answer for that. I can tell you that it is, and it has to be an exception.
I'm hoping so.
I'm thinking so. You know what? I can look into that for you. Let me figure out how to get your contact information. You're on the phone, right? You can't just type it in.
Can you give me your number?
I don't want to give it to you while we're still recording, but if you stay on the call, I can do that, or you can email me. and I'll give that out. That's fine. It's K Lopez at lonestarlegal.org. Also, Nia knows how to get a hold of me too. If you have trouble with that. But if you can, yeah, shoot me an email and I'll look into it, because that's a very good question that is probably going to come up a lot more, because this is kind of a recent bill. It only took into effect, I think this year. I think, no, I'm not gonna speculate until I look at something. I don't want to give you the wrong answer. All right. Is
Thank
there
you.
anyone else? No problem. Is there anyone else who has a question? No? Okay. So I guess if there's nothing else, we will go ahead and end this presentation. Thank you all for coming on.
I have a question if you hear.
Sure. Hello. Someone else have a question? You did?
Can you hear me now?
You are very crackly, but I'll try my best.
My question is,
Oh, I can't hear you.
yes, I email you.
You what? You'll email me? Okay. Sorry, I can't hear you, but get in touch with NRCDC. Yeah. Why don't you get in touch with them, and they can pass on my contact information, or can email me your question, since I'm really having a hard time hearing you. I hope that sounds good. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Anyone else? All right. If not, I think that's it for us today. Thank you for joining us. Bye.